calls at some date in the near future, maybe when we get back out of phase 2. But I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, so I see we're streaming now. If I may call this meeting, January 12th meeting of City Council to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Del Chapo.
Here.
Councilmember Shealy.
Here.
Councilmember Saccharin.
Here.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Here.
Councilmember Brady.
Present.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Waring. Councilmember Seeking.
Here. Here.
Councilmember Shade.
Present.
Councilmember Griffin.
Here.
Councilmember Appel.
Here.
Councilwoman Jackson.
Here.
Mayor Tecklenburg.
Here. And now, if you and anyone on the line would like to join us, Councilwoman Del Chapo, would you kindly give us an invocation?
God, thank you for your amazing power to work in our lives. Thank you for your goodness and for your blessings over us. Thank you that you are able to bring hope through even the toughest of times, strengthening us for your purposes. Thank you for your great love and care, for your mercy and grace. Thank you that you are always with us and will never leave us, for your incredible sacrifice so that we might have freedom and life. Forgive us when we don't thank you enough for who you are, for all that you do, for all that you've given. Help us to set our eyes and our hearts on you afresh. Renew our spirits. Fill us with your peace and joy. We love and need you this and every day. We give you praise and thanks, for you alone are worthy. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. And the United States flag is here. If you'll all join me in citing our pledge to our country. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and to
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just a few presentations and recognitions. First, I would like to thank and recognize Councilmember Mitchell, one of our senior colleagues, for his service during the past year as Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Charleston. And Councilmember Mitchell, I have give you a plaque commemorating your service and thanking you for that. I admit in last year's year of COVID, there weren't a lot of events that I was invited to, so you didn't have to stand in for me as mayor for those very often, but you did whenever I called upon you, and I thank you very much for your service to our city. Councilmember, if you'd like to make a comment.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity. And like I said, that was my third time being Mayor Pro Tem, and that's it. And I know we didn't have too much going on. I did a few, but it's always interesting to meet others and going and spreading the joy what City of Charleston is doing, and letting people know that we are here and we have love for everyone, even everyone in the City of Charleston and outside the City of Charleston. So I just would say thank you for giving me the opportunity to be the Mayor Pro Tem again for the third time, and give it to somebody else. Let them be this for three more times. Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you. And so, speaking of which, I do want to announce the appointment, as you received by email, of our next Mayor Pro Tem, which would be Councilmember Carol Jackson, not the first woman to serve as Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Charleston. I believe that honor went to Hilda Hutchison Jefferson, who I remember fondly, and she was a force of nature and a wonderful person. And then shortly after her service as Mayor Pro Tem, one of the next women Mayor Pro Tems of the city was my mother. So I think you would like to say you follow fine footsteps. So Carol Jackson, congratulations, and I look forward to your service this year as Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate it. I'll do my best.
So I
think we need to vote on that, don't we?
We haven't finished yet.
Yeah, I think we have to formalize it with a vote.
We do. I'll move for approval, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. And then I distributed also along with, on that same document, the committee appointments for this coming year, which were substantially the same as they were this past year. Madam Clerk, does that require an approval by council?
No, sir.
I don't think it did. Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I think I'm gonna ask to do as I did last year. I had to ask my way onto the budget committee, so I'm gonna ask if I wasn't appointed last year and was added, and I'm asking that I could be added this year.
Oh, right. So I thought by virtue of your chairmanship that you were.
I think that's the same issue that happened last year. So somehow I got left off this year.
Okay, I just didn't. I never revised the form, I guess. So
Okay, yeah. So
that's
what I thought. But anyway, but thank you.
We will revise that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. So next we have a presentation of the South Carolina chapter of the American Planning Association, Great Places in South Carolina, and a special award. I'm going to call on Councilmember Ross Appel to present that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is very exciting. We won a state award over in my district. The Ashley River Bridge District is a very special place in the city of Charleston. It makes up some of the oldest and most well-established neighborhoods in the city of Charleston. Places like Old Windermere, South Windermere, Wapu Heights, the Crescent, Moreland, Westwood, and of course, Burns Downs and Avondale. And, the Ashley River District plan was first put into place in 1997. I was in the 8th grade, but it's been a very important planning document that sort of guides a lot of the work that we do here today. And it's a main reason why this is humbly one of the best places to live, work, and play in the city of Charleston. And it's very, very distinct honor. This is the first SCAPA award that the city of Charleston has ever received off the peninsula, which I think is a big, important recognition. And we've got some special guests today that can do a much better job of explaining the Ashley River Bridge District's origin, as well as the award that we're here to talk about today. So we've got Donna Jacobs, who is a regular on our Zoom calls of late for good reason. And then we've got Amy Sutherland with our Livability and Tourism Department, Eric Pullman, our West Ashley Projects Coordinator, and they're gonna take it away from here and explain a little bit more about this effort and this award and what we've got going on over in this corner of the city. Thank you.
Hello, so I'm Amy Sutherland, and today I'm not here as a city employee, but as a member of the South Carolina chapter of the American Planning Association. Annually, our national organization, the American Planning Association, recognizes great places in America in 3 different categories: great neighborhoods, great public spaces, and great streets. South Carolina has received 6 of these awards, and 3 of the 6 are in Charleston. King Street, Broad Street, and Waterfront Park all have this designation. The South Carolina chapter modeled their program after the national chapter, and we wanted to do this in order to acknowledge and celebrate planning efforts across the state. We are happy to share with you that the Ashley Bridge District won the inaugural South Carolina Great Places Award for 2020. The Ashley Bridge District is an example of a great neighborhood for many reasons, but in order to keep it brief, I'll just share a few highlights. The review committee recognized the importance of connectivity between the 9 neighborhoods that make up the district. This connectivity is one of the most important components creating a livable built environment and quality of life for the residents. The district has a very healthy mix of public space, commercial and residential uses, and there is an interwoven equity in diversity of housing with single family, duplexes, multifamily mixed throughout. The Ashley Bridge District additionally is an anchor for the city and surrounding regions, acting as a destination, not only for its services, recreation, and employment opportunities, but also for its sense of place in our community. We would like to encourage the planning team to apply for the next national award and show the rest of the country what great places we have in South Carolina and in Charleston. Congratulations again on receiving the first Great Places in South Carolina award. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
Donna, did you want to add anything? And thank you again for being with us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to add a couple of comments, if I may. This is very exciting for us who live in these neighborhoods of the Ashley Bridge District, for the district to be the inaugural recipient of the South Carolina American Planners Association's Great Places Award. We're just thrilled. The story of the ABD actually begins with a conversation, and it was much like Councilman Waring was speaking in Ways and Means. If this conversation didn't happen, maybe we wouldn't have gotten this far. And this conversation was between Bill Lawrence, who lived in South Windermere, and Mayor Riley. And Bill Lawrence told the mayor that if the city did not begin to work affirmatively to protect the original neighborhoods just west of the Ashley River, then they might begin to decline due to the pressures exerted by traffic, commercial changes, and resulting livability issues. After this conversation, the old West Ashley Neighborhood Association formed. The group worked with the city to fund a charrette that generated this Ashley Bridge District plan, and the plan was adopted by City Council in January of 1997. Since that plan's adoption, there have been way too many people to name who have worked diligently and affirmatively in the district so that these neighborhoods and the commercial areas surrounding them are vibrant, thriving, livable, and connected. In this effort, we've had the support of great city staff and 4 engaged council members, starting with Yvonne Evans, then Mike Seekings, Bill Moody, and now Ross Appel, who have helped us navigate all the hurdles in the city, county, state, and SCDOT agencies. In the 30 years of the existence, we have been successful in creating the Savannah Highway overlay, the closing of Stalker Drive to cut through traffic, thus turning this street to a peaceful neighborhood street, reducing the speed limit on Savannah Highway and Folly Road to 35 miles an hour to promote a more pedestrian-friendly environment, creating a median on Savannah Highway accented with mast arms for signal lights in the Avondale Business District to facilitate safe pedestrian crossing of the highway, redesigning South Windermere Boulevard through the South Windermere Shopping Center with enhanced landscaping and pedestrian crosswalks, supporting Charleston Moves in their work to obtain the build grant for the bike pad bridge across the Ashley River. These and a myriad of small neighborhood projects have culminated in this recognition. And we would like to thank Eric Pullman for so beautifully marketing our belief in these neighborhoods to SCAPA as a great place. And we appreciate the encouragement to apply for the National Great Place Award. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Donna. You were really one of the you mentioned those 2 gentlemen, but we all know that you were pulling the heavy load and doing a lot of the work behind the scenes, particularly in those early days, but really all along. So thanks again for all your efforts for the city. And I'll
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That, I live in one of those 9 neighborhoods, and it's a great place to live. There's no question about it. Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say a big shout out to Amy and to Donna for y'all's work on all of this. And just to give everybody sort of a perspective on that 1997 plan and the positive influence it had on not just Councilmember Appel's district, but those things that we talked about, connectivity in neighborhoods and addressing traffic concerns and live, work, and play. That was the hallmark of the West Ashley Revitalization Commission. Several times going through the charrettes, several times going through putting the Plan West Ashley together, those were the things that we copied. That we copied and pasted, cut and pasted those sort of things, those positive influences out of those neighborhoods to create Plan West Ashley. And so it's not just stopping and this within this particular district. It is moving on through all of West Ashley. It's serving as a model, quite frankly, for a lot of things that we are doing with implementing the Plan West Ashley study. So a big thank you for all the work that my predecessors had in this. You mentioned Councilmember Seekings and Councilwoman Evans, and so a lot of people had their fingerprints on this, Councilwoman Moody as well. And this is going forward now with all of this. So I just think we need to keep in mind how good planning sort of permeates through more good planning. And that's what we're trying to do with the West Ashley Revitalization Commission. So big thank you to a lot of people who had their fingerprints all over this. And congratulations, Councilmember Appel. You get to take a lot of credit.
No,
Not at all. Not at all.
all right. Well, thank you all. So we have just one matter on public hearings regarding, we've already approved this for first reading by council, but as a formality, it comes to us as a public hearing. Does Mr. Morgan or someone want to make a brief presentation?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is an item that was at Planning Commission on December 16th. And I received a unanimous recommendation to you all for approval. And Mr. McQueenie is available if there are any questions about the ordinance itself.
Did anyone from the public want to be heard on this, Madam Clerk?
We did not have anyone sign up for this item. We did have some citizens sign up for citizen participation. We did receive one comment from Cashin Rollet, and she just stated that the Charleston Historic Foundation is in support of the proposed ordinance, and they were excited to see the provisions for outdoor dining gain permanency. They also encourage City Council to work with other neighborhood boards and commissions to explore options so that outdoor dining does not expire in 2022.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
All right, this will be for second reading. Any discussion? Councilmember Seekings?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, I'd just like to point out that the Planning Commission, when they approved this, did so with an enthusiastic 8-0 vote. It came with that descriptive before it. Also, there was discussion about the sunset provision. I would just like to ask my fellow council members and you, Mr. Mayor, to keep an eye on that sunset provision as we go forward and see how this all works. And the next thing on this ordinance is to get rid of that sunset provision, because I think that would then give some certainty and show some support for the investment that our restaurants have made in the outdoor dining. So I look forward to voting for this and to see the sunset provision be eliminated before the sunset actually comes along. So thank you very much.
Understood completely. I agree. All right. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for third reading and
So
ratification.
moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. So next is our approval of city council minutes.
And this will just be December 1st.
December 1st.
Second.
Have a motion to approve any changes, deletions, additions. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Next up is our citizens participation period. Madam Clerk.
Yes, we have 8 people signed up to speak. And Mr. Mayor, would you like to set a time limit?
2.
How many folks?
8
Well-
people.
Well,
2.
let's do 2 minutes each, please.
All right, the first speaker that we have, and I hope I'm not mispronouncing her name, it's Jennifer Thiem or Tim. And if you are on the line, if you could press *6. Mark.
Thank you. Yes, this is Jennifer Tim, and I do not have any comments this evening.
All right, thank you.
Next is Mark Pergolesi, and apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name. If you're on the line, if you could press *6.
Good evening, Madam Clerk, and you pronounced my name perfectly. Thank you. This is Mark Pergolisi. I am the district manager for Carolina Waste and Recycling, and I have no comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next is Brandon Fish. And Mr. Fish, if you are on the line, if you could press *6. Brandon Fish.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear
Hello?
you.
Hi, this is Brandon Fish. I'm the director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Charleston, and I wanted to just call in and encourage the passage of the resolution on white nationalism, white supremacy, and neo-Nazism that's up for discussion this evening. Our community has watched the public emergence of hate groups both in Charleston and across the country with grave concern. The past few years have seen a dramatic rise in hate crime and an almost unprecedented acceptance of fringe hate groups into the marketplace of ideas and also the political mainstream. Just 1 week ago, we witnessed some of these hate groups play a part in the storming and desecration of our beloved Capitol building in Washington. Some of them were wearing shirts celebrating the Holocaust. Others among these insurrectionists who played a part in the events of January 6th are affiliated with local Charleston hate groups and are said to have played a part in organizing a rally downtown just a few weeks or a month ago. We applaud the city for continuing to take a stand against hate. As an organization that represents a politically diverse community, we also see the value in continuing to identify and alienate white nationalist and white supremacist organizations from any mainstream political party or movement. Our Jewish Community Relations Council holds that anti-Semitism, racism, xenophobia, Islamophobia, homophobia, and any and all other forms of hate have no legitimate role in the business of our city or our nation, and we would thank our city's leadership for standing with us on this principle. Thank you.
Next is Rita Zerkis. And if you're on the line, if you could press *6. Next is Jason Jones. And Jason, if you're on the line, if you could press *6.
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Jason Jones, founder of the United Front of Charleston, activist and humanitarian group that's been moving throughout Charleston. First, the only reason I called tonight is to also encourage the hate crime resolution, or the hate group resolution that has been put forth by Councilman Mitchell. We stand strongly in support of this resolution, and as I say we, I mean the greater underserved, underprivileged, and minority communities of Charleston. We are ever so thankful for Councilman Mitchell stepping forward and putting this out there. We hope that this resolution is heard by the city and agreed upon unanimously. And we would also like to ask the city and question to the city of what this means, what this resolution means going forward, what ordinances that will be put in place following this resolution, and how we step forward going from here, as we have heard time and time again, many words come from not just this city, but our nation as a whole, and see little action following those words. So again, while we are ever so thankful for Councilman Mitchell putting this forward, we are always looking at the next step and the next moves to make following moves such as this resolution. The only thing I have left to say beyond that is thank you, Charleston, for being on the right side of history.
Thank you, sir.
Next is Marcus McDonald. And Mr. McDonald, if you're on the line, if you could press *6. Marcus McDonald.
Hello, City Council. Can everybody hear me?
We
Yes,
can.
sir.
Sounds good. Well, I won't take up too much of your time today. A lot of the things that I would be wanting to say, I said at the last City Council meeting in regards to white supremacy groups and things getting out of control. And if we didn't do anything about it, you know, something would happen, and, you know, we'd be calling for unity afterwards, but it would be too late. And that's what I was saying in the last meeting. And I know that fell on a lot of deaf ears, but we're here now, and
You know, a lot of the same Confederate flags that fly at the Battery that I was warning about, that Harry Griffin supported, those same flags were in the White House. The same Blue Lives Matter flags, they're flying at the Battery, and they were flying at that Proud Boys rally. Those same flags beat a DC police officer to death last week. They beat a police officer to death, and we're the same people carrying around Blue Lives Matter flags. And I said before in the last meeting, and I'll say it again, we have to act on this before it gets even worse, and it will get even worse. Anybody who's been reading the news knows what's going to happen on Inauguration Day. It's going to get out of hand. It will. It undoubtedly will. And we have a sitting city council member who applauded a lot of the work that these people did and didn't tell them to change a thing when they wanted to march in our city. But we didn't do a thing until we saw something happen at the White House. And now we're sitting around thinking about what we could do. And now it's too late. And my last thing is, I will say I commend Councilmember Mitchell for standing up with this resolution. And I also commend Jason Jones for what he said. Right now it's time to do the work, because if we keep waiting, more people are going to die. And we shouldn't be worried about these tourists that are coming in. There's one city council member who talked about crying about the tourists. What about the Black folks who live here who are scared about them burning Black Lives Matter flags? You see them around the country beating up people of color and women. What about them? So think about them next time you're talking about protecting the citizens of Charleston. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next is Evelyn DeVere. And hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Evelyn DeVere, if you're on the line, if you could press *6.
Hi, I'm calling tonight to reflect the comments of my fellow citizens in support of the resolution against hate groups in Charleston. I have to say I'm pretty dismayed at the silence that there's been over this whole time from City Council and the mayor. As Marcus said, we have to say something or else things will get worse. And, you know, we don't have to wait for a City Council meeting to hear from you. We could hear from you at any time, and we would have appreciated that. Secondly, I just wanted to address the overall lack of respect from many City Council members when citizens are speaking. We can see you texting, doing other work, having full conversations. You know, it's just pretty disheartening to watch. And I would ask that you respect us and respect your jobs and really pay attention when we're speaking to you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next is Reverend Nelson Rivers. And Reverend Rivers, if you're on the line, if you could press *6. Reverend Rivers. And I'll go back just in case we missed her. Rita Kazurkis, if you're on the line, if you could press *6. And those were all the speakers that we had tonight. We did receive some comments. We had 2 citizens that asked that the city respond to the riots in DC. One citizen stated that the school district should continue to be virtual and asked that Councilmember Griffin resign. We had 4 citizens who supported the resolution denouncing white supremacy. And those are all the comments that we received.
Great. Thank you, Madam Clerk, and I appreciate everyone's participation and signing on and letting us hear from you. All right, next is our petitions and communications. First is the approval of a planning commission appointment of
Move for approval.
Jenkins.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And this next one, I'm not so sure about. No.
Move for approval, Mr.
Second.
Jennifer Cook, you've been doing an outstanding job as interim clerk of this council, and I believe I see a lot of head shaking here. You have everyone's full-fledged support and thankfulness. So thank you, Jennifer, for your service to us all.
Thank you.
Yeah. All in favor of Jennifer's appointment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it unanimously. Next is an update on another proposed settlement agreement. I think Julia Copeland is going to update us on this one. Julia.
Sir, good evening, Mayor and Council. It's good to see everybody tonight. Happy New Year. I'm here today with a settlement proposal from an appeal of a BOZA approval, actually. It's what they're appealing is the 3 conditions that they attach to an approval. This is Stanley Martin Homes. They're building out on Daniel Island, a neighborhood on Fairbanks Oaks Alley. They submitted a request to BOZA for the removal of 8 grand trees. The request was granted, but with 3 conditions. And one of those was that they had to save tree number 8. They did appeal this, and we went through 2 days of mediation with outside counsel. Also Eric Schultz with the TRC. And just so you know, this project is still going through the TRC process. Any approval tonight does not stop that. It just goes into the TRC process with the design as we have worked through in the mediation. But Schultz and Kinsey Holton assisted with the mediation and with an alternate design that, if you guys approve tonight, will go into the TRC process for review and comments. Staff has recommended approval on this.
I'll move for approval.
Second. Any discussions or questions of Julia? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Appreciate that. Next, just to give council a little update and to appoint a ad hoc committee. At our last meeting, we discussed the thought of having a code of conduct for council members. And if you recall, Chip McQueenie volunteered to spend some time. I will send out tomorrow to you all a 5-page ordinance that Chip, in his normal thorough fashion, has recommended to us. So rather than spend hours, and we didn't really have, I thought, a appropriate standing committee to send this to for review, to come back to council. So I'd like to appoint an ad hoc committee chaired by council members Del Chapo and Appel. And if any council members would like to join them to review this document and then come back with a report to council in the near future, I'd appreciate it. And they've agreed to lead that effort. And even if you don't serve on the committee, if you want to, I'm sure, just read the document, and if you have any suggestions, they'd welcome any suggestions that anyone may have. And of course, and they'll come back to us and make some recommendation about any changes or whether we even want to proceed with this at all. Any questions or comments about that? Yes, Councilmember Griffin.
Yes, sir. You said it was a code of conduct for the council members, but are you included in that as well?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I think it was written that way. I'm sure it's certainly fine with me for it to include me. Absolutely.
Yes, sir. I wrote it to include everybody.
For clarity, the mayor is a member of council.
Absolutely.
Yes, but he said council members, so I just wanted to make sure.
He's a member. He's a member of council.
He's a member of the city council, but he's not a council member.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that.
I addressed all that language in the ordinance because it is confusing the way it's written now, but it applies to the mayor and all members of city council. And then it defines a member, which is what it applies to the rest of the document, as the mayor and all members of city council, just to be very clear on that.
Thank you. Are you addressing committee members?
No.
Meaning outside committee members, not necessarily council.
No, sir. I haven't done, other than elected officials. I've only geared this towards elected officials, and I do think it could be expanded to address appointed officials. My goal here was to, even though I don't do things simply, to try to keep it somewhat simple for these purposes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Shade.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo. I think the intent back when we discussed this last year was to make sure we included those folks who served on boards and citizen committees. So I would ask our two council members who are chairing this to make sure that's also included as part of your discussions.
Sounds like a recommendation to him. Councilmember Griffin.
One more question. What's the point of having an ad hoc if we've already got a 5-page document? Why wouldn't we just take it up as a council and decide whether or not we want to do it or not?
Just in the interest of time and to drill down, focus on it, and bring it back to council as we would do with most matters.
Okay.
All right. So thank you for that. Next will be our update on the city's response to COVID-19. I know Tracy McKee is planning on giving us an update. Perhaps Shannon, I didn't ask Shannon, but I see him on there, so he must be planning to as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Shannon is available tonight, and I'm going to hit a little bit of an update on cases and some data around vaccinations, and let Shannon talk about the emergency management efforts. So getting right to it, you've seen this graph before, but this is just a newly updated the daily number of cases and the rolling 7-day average in our City of Charleston zip codes. We've seen about an 87% increase in that 7-day average over the past 2 weeks. So obviously that's been kind of an acceleration of cases at the local level. Hospitalizations are also on the rise, as we all know. The mayor did a wonderful press conference with representatives from MUSC and Roper to talk about the rise in hospitalizations that we're seeing. And so and next to our indicators, we are pretty much red across the board. And in the press conference on Monday, the mayor mentioned that we were taking a step back from phase 3 back to phase 2. So what does that mean? Our plan is really for city offices and facilities. So it's kind of about our internal operations. And so I have just a brief summary of kind of what that really means. It's impacted to special events and park permits. People can still submit applications for these things, but we won't be having any of these things happen during while we're in phase 2. But we hope that we are in phase 2 for a brief moment in time, and that when we return back to phase 3, we can allow some low risk events to happen. City offices are actually now closed to the public, so it's by appointment only, and that is an exception to that is the permit center. So they've modified their operations to assist individuals that really need some one-on-one assistance, and they've managed to do that very well and in a very low risk scenario. And we thought that was really important to maintain. Similarly to recreation, they've done a really wonderful job of having some recreation programming, and we feel that they've done it very low risk and safely, and that's really important element to have for the community. So those things will continue though. Employee cases, we've had 2 hospitalizations to date. We currently have 19 active cases. We've had a total of 204 cases and over 1,000 employee tests and contact tracing been done for that number of employees. So, so a big kudos to our health and wellness team and safety team who have done all the contact tracing. It's been a lot of work. So getting to some positive things, I mentioned vaccinations at the last meeting. We're finally starting to see some data around vaccinations, some good numbers. CDC is reporting that we've received almost 350 first doses of vaccinations in South Carolina. And DHEC is reporting that about 26 of those first doses have actually been administered. So here's just a chart that shows kind of the doses that we're receiving per week in South Carolina. And we seem to be hovering around 60,000 that we're getting in the state every week. And then you can see the cumulative impact of those vaccinations being administered. And we do get those by the type of vaccine, whether it's Moderna or Pfizer. So really quickly about employee vaccinations, any of the employees that have been designated as 1A, as well as those 70 years and older, have already received a link to get vaccinated. And we are continuing to advocate for all of our employees as essential workers, ensure that we get our folks vaccinated as quickly as possible. And I did mention last time that we were standing up an IMT around vaccinations. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shannon and let him share with you the work that they've been doing.
Tracy, before you go there, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Under your screen here, you've got employee vaccinations, you've got 70 and older. I guess you're referring not to just 70 and older employees, but 70 and older citizens in our community. Right.
That's correct. We've proactively shared a link with our employees to let them know that those 70 and older can go ahead and get vaccinated. But yes, that's true. Anyone in the community 70 and older is now eligible to register to get vaccinated.
And I think I saw somewhere on one of the news outlets that the president is advocating for it to be 65 and older.
I'm not sure about that. I have heard of some places that have opened it up to 65 and older, but I don't think that we have not gotten word that is happening here in South Carolina yet. So,
okay. Well, I would just ask that you maybe follow up on that part of it. That's going to include a higher percentage of our population, I would suspect, and those who are vulnerable to that. So, if you would just sort of double check that new development, and I think that would something that's just happened earlier this afternoon. I see Councilman Warren shaking his head. I think he's can add some to that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, Shannon's been in regular contact with DHEC as well as the other emergency managers at the local level. So he's really got his finger on the pulse of that. So as soon as that is available, I'm sure he will sound the alarm.
Councilmember
Waring.
Yeah, thank you. Just to follow up on Councilman Shayade, I did see that on the news this morning too, Tracy, on the national news. But they did say it would be something that would have to be accepted by each governor. So I don't know whether that's being filtered down or not. But I know one thing: I stand ready to take my vaccine shot.
You got that right. So next we'll call on Shannon Scaff, our Emergency Management Director. And just to let y'all know, he has formed an incident command team similar to if we had a hurricane or any other big event, disaster type event, to help manage our both our communications and our response and our cooperation with DHEC and our other healthcare providers regarding the vaccination. Shannon?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. This is my first time using a new computer here, so just want to make sure my connectivity is good. Thank you for that. We're very fortunate. The majority of our incident management team we activated way back in March, which seems like 1,000 years ago. Many of those same folks from Team Charleston have come back to help with this phase of the crisis. We're off to the races on this thing. Over the last couple of months, I've been looking at the communications just throughout the city and through our partners external to city government. And I felt like it was important for us to make sure that information flow was efficient and accurate. And what better way to do that than go ahead and pull our team back together and activate for this phase. So that was kind of the main premise initially, was to ensure that communication was accurate, information was accurate, flowing around the city. We identified 6 main objectives for the incident management team to focus on as we continue to march down the road and into spring. we have the strongest interest in helping out our partners, however we're able to ensure we get to herd immunity as quickly and effectively as possible. And I'm going to go ahead and review those objectives with you now and be happy to take any questions from you. The first one is to establish and implement a robust COVID vaccination protocol for city staff. And these are in no particular order. And, you know, Tracy's talked a bit about that already, but the reality is we've been working for a couple of months now to really provide, you know, and keep ourselves in line with sort of the directives in terms of who is 1A, 1B, and so on and so forth. And then we've communicated that to the folks that are asking for that information. So establish and implement a robust COVID vaccination protocol for city staff. The second one is to support vaccination efforts throughout the city. We're sort of limited in our information that we have available to us right now, but I can assure you, as was said a moment ago, I'm in daily contact with MUSC and Roper and others to see how we might be able to help them with these vaccination efforts. And I suspect that as we work our way through winter, there's going to be some real opportunity there for us to team up, just like we did with testing way back months ago. So we're chomping at the bit to help out there. The next one would be monitor city COVID vaccinations and vaccine availability daily. As Tracy has already sort of brought to the surface here, we're definitely very interested in seeing, you know, what's available to us and making sure we're ready with the folks that we need to have them cycle through for a vaccination. Monitor public receptivity to vaccinations and other key trends. Kind of where we went with this was when we first got into the COVID-19 crisis, there was this immediate need to figure out where certain areas of Charleston were impacted the most. And then that turned out to be kind of our main focus, really, as we march through spring and into summer. This is kind of that same way. We want to really have an understanding of our community and their desire to receive the vaccination, and then any other key trends that may identify themselves as we work through this. Maximize public messaging in support of widespread vaccinations. I mean, we've already seen the press conferences that are happening and really trying to encourage people to educate themselves on the effectiveness of the vaccine and you know, cancel out any rumors or misconceptions about the vaccine itself. Finally, effectively liaise with healthcare community and other key partners. I will finish with this. I'm very, very proud of the relationships that we have with our medical community, with other emergency managers in the area, with DHEC, the folks at Charleston and Berkeley County. It's a full court press, and it has been for several months now. And now we're getting into what I think is a more positive phase of this crisis, and there's hope with this vaccine. So we're going to continue to march through with this incident management team. It's a great team. I'm very proud of all of them, and happy to take any of your questions.
Any questions for either Shannon or Tracy? Well, I want to thank them both for their efforts. It's really a team effort. And our goal is to get as many staff members vaccinated as soon as possible, but we also want that for our community. So I do want to ask all of my colleagues here on council to please share the information that we, I believe, have shared with you. If not, Tracy, please do so tomorrow. Our links with the CDC, with detailed information about the vaccine, and so that when they get that call from DHEC that they're now eligible to get in line, that everybody will be ready to step up who's willing, and there won't be a lot of hesitation as has been encountered in some places already. So I think the quicker we can get this thing out and the more folks vaccinated, the sooner we get to a herd immunity, and that will keep us all safer and healthier. So we do have the matter of our continuing ordinances. I guess it's time to renew those. So
Move for approval.
Second.
Any questions of Ms. Herdina on what we have before us this evening? Councilmember Griffin.
Yes, sir. I just want to state for the record that I'm going to be voting no because I think that we should still be looking to meet in person before March, which this ordinance will run through, I think, March, some point, March 12th or something along those lines. And I would just hope that we could continue to try to meet in person before then. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments?
Was the motion for items I6 and 7 for both items?
Yes, ma'am.
I think that was the intent, yes. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. And one nay. Thank you. So next up is council communications. We have a request from Councilmember Mitchell.
Move for approval.
We have a motion for approval.
I'm gonna second it, Mr. Mayor.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I know,
Councilmember Seekings, did you want to be recognized?
I know has, oh,
No, sir, I was just voting.
Councilmember Mitchell?
yeah, I know it has been approved, and I'm not going to prolong it because we can go on. And I hope that everyone have received the amended copy. And that's the new copy that we are voting on tonight. What you see there on council is a little different.
Okay.
We have already addressed those particular names before, so we have to go back and reiterate it, do it again. So I just want to make sure that the new orders that we see, the new resolution that we see with the new changes, and that's what we're voting on tonight. And I thank you all for doing that, because I think we have to get on with the business of Charleston and keeping everything safe here, and hope that everybody would come together so we are sending a message out. And I had some calls from some council members from other jurisdiction already that they want to look at the ordinance when it's approved, because they want to try to do the same thing there, even at Foley Beach and other places. They already called and checked on me with that. So we just hope that it's a start.
Well,
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe that the revised resolution has been distributed yet to council.
Oh,
So
okay.
I don't know if we want to put that up on the screen, Jennifer.
Yes.
Do that.
Okay. I would like Susan, if you may, would you read that new amended copy of the ordinance? If anyone have received it, I don't know if everyone have received it. Has everyone received the amended copy?
No, sir.
No.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask Susan just to read that for me, please.
Sure. And Jennifer, do you want to put it up on the shared screen? That might be helpful for people to read along with me. So just in summary, what this revised version has done is to actually expand the resolution to include any group or individuals who are seeking to divide our community. And we also, or the resolution as requested by Councilmember Mitchell also requests that the state of South Carolina, that the General Assembly immediately enact a hate crimes law for the state of South Carolina. So the intent of the revisions is really to make this broader. I think there was some concern that by naming specific groups, we were making it more narrow, but the object of this resolution that Councilmember Mitchell has requested is really to basically say we do not, or the City Council in this resolution does not approve of any group or any individual who's seeking to divide our community and to incite hate and violence. So I see that Jennifer has it up there. I can read it if you'd like.
That looks like the only significant changes.
That's it. Yeah.
Uh,
That's about it. And I think as everybody's satisfied with it, we wouldn't have to go through it and read it all over again, I guess. 'Cause
I
yeah.
move that we approve it as amended.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion?
Well,
Jennifer,
I do, Mr. Mayor.
if you would page down just a little bit, Jennifer, to see the last whereas. Nope, go, I guess page up.
Right.
Right there. So this was one of the more inclusive paragraphs, I think, whereas we are committed to promoting a community that is unified, where people of different races, religion, sexual orientation, and ethnic backgrounds resolve together to overcome the challenges of its past, become stronger and more inclusive, as we call upon the South Carolina General Assembly to immediately enact a hate crimes law for the state of South Carolina. And I will share with council, we did this, at least a call to the state. We did this a year ago in a similar action. And in my view, shows the history of this council and administration to renounce all forms of hatred and administration. We did it with the apology for slavery. We did it with our own creation of a hate crime bill 3 years ago. We did it in our call to the state to create a hate crime bill, and we do it again tonight. So this is not new for our city. We reject violence. We reject hatred. We have learned the lesson that love is greater than hatred in this city, if no other place has learned it. And so this is consistent with what we have been doing now for years. So any other comments or questions? Councilmember Waring.
Thank you for your words, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank Councilmember Mitchell for thinking about doing this. When he came up with this was prior to the horrendous events that we witnessed in our Capitol on last week. So this isn't a knee-jerk reaction being responsive to that. But if I had known any better, you would have thought he had maybe some clear view vision on that. So helping to bring any words that help to reject hate and to promote a community coming together, or our community coming together, our state coming together, our country coming together, we ought to obviously support that. This last paragraph was well placed, and I commend you and the staff, the mayor, everyone who realized that though we don't have a perfect union, it's been said, and we all believe that we're working towards a more perfect union. And you do that by reaching out, not by dividing and pushing people away. So thank you, Councilman Mitchell, for your leadership on this.
Councilmember Mitchell.
And Mr. Mayor, I would like to thank the staff, Virginia, our attorney, and my co-host, Mr. Peter Shade, Councilman Peter Shade, for all working with me to make sure I draft this correctly and with which was in my head and my mind, getting it through and having it properly prepared. And I know there was a prayer that we came up with. Is does Appel has it? No, Councilman Appel, do you have it?
I have it, Mr.
I would ask if y'all indulge me just for a moment. I would like Councilman Peter Shade just to read that prayer, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
This is a prayer prepared by Rabbi Ravitsky. It's called A Prayer for Our Country. And it goes as follows. Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessings for our country, for its government, for its leaders and advisors, and for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights from your Torah, that they may administer all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst. Creator of all flesh, bless the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds form a common bond in true harmony, to banish hatred and bigotry, and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are the pride and glory of our country. May this land under your providence be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom, helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say, amen.
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 Thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, for your indulgence.
Could I ask for a vote on the resolution as amended?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Mayor,
Councilmember.
I'm sorry. That's a beautiful prayer, and I definitely will support any resolution that the council is going to pass, has passed, and will amend and pass again. I guess, and I apologize that I'm sort of just thinking out loud, having understood the amended version that you're asking us to pass now, Councilmember Mitchell. I personally was overjoyed when I saw that you had put this forward for us to enact this evening. And I'm just wondering out loud, and I would really appreciate the advice of people that have been fighting this fight in this place, you know, for your own lives and for your parents' lives and your grandparents' lives. But to me, taking out the calling out of white nationalism, white supremacy, neo-Nazism, somehow doesn't get our point across. I mean, the title of it is those white nationalist, bigot, white groups that are content with making our city and our nation divided along racial lines. And we also say in the title, and any other groups and individuals who seek to divide. So it's still the same intent that you're asking us to vote on now in the amended version. And I'm thinking out loud about this, but somehow take out the white nationalism, white supremacy, neo-Nazi approbations that we do not agree with, and we would do everything in our power to keep them from having any sort of voice or prosperity in our city beyond the First Amendment, which we know we have to honor and uphold. So I'm thinking out loud. I would like to hear a couple of comments. Of course, I'm going to vote for this. And I'm sorry to put this comment in ahead of that beautiful prayer and the vote that you all want to take. But I would really like to know some conversation, if you would indulge me. Thank you.
Well,
Councilmember Mitchell.
yes, with that, Councilmember Jackson, when I read over it, I looked at it very seriously. We mentioned that in our bill that we sent before, all those particular individuals or groups that you mentioned, and it was mentioned before when we approved it prior to it. So that's why I said, well, to make it clear, to put all groups, any group, individuals, and that's including all of that in it, since we already did it before, just to leave it open that way and not giving anybody any props, anything that they come to do, and so far as that's concerned. So that's why I made the change that way. And I had a meeting with the chief and others today, and I came up with this, and I said, I make this just that a few changes, because since we had already did it, those names with the white supremacist group and the neo-Nazi, we already did that before. So that's already in the resolution that we did before, and with the hate crime bill, the hate crime bill that we did, and all that's included into that. So when this resolution came this way, I said, okay, I'll make it this way. Just change that top part of it and make everybody feel that we can prove this and go on, and they can send it up to the state and add certain things in the paragraph below. So that's what it was all about. But they know all that's included when they was mentioned. All that's included in that when they said all groups and all individuals. They know exactly what it means. So that was the bottom line of it.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you so much. Next up is our committee reports. First is our Committee on Public Safety. Councilmember Shade.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just bring up a quick point of order, and it just occurred to me. Are we supposed to adopt the Robert's Rules of Order at our first meeting?
We did not include that. I think I was going to come back to you at the next meeting with any rule changes and Robert's Rules of Orders.
I know we do that as a formality. It just sort of occurred to me. And
formality, Jennifer, would you make sure we include that next time?
We can. In the rules of council, they do not have to be adopted at the first meeting every year. The current rules of council that are in the code have been in there for some time. And so those would just stay. We would follow the rules that are currently in the code until they are changed. But we can add that on.
Your first real question I have for you is the full-fledged clerk of council. So thank you for that that response. It just occurred to me as we're going through our agenda, Madam Clerk. So thanks for the clarification. Mr. Mayor, if I'll move on to the Public Safety Committee report. The Public Safety Committee met on January 11th at 2:30 in the afternoon. We had 2 items on our agenda. They were just to get an update on the after action report and an update on the status of fire station number 11. So we had extended the deadline for citizen comments and participation to December 31st. That deadline has now expired. We hope to have a final draft for the committee's approval either at the end of this month or the first part of February. I think they received an additional 28 responses by extending that deadline until December 31st. As to the fire station number 11, as y'all heard me talk about this before, we've had significant problems with the completion of this fire station, but there has been good progress on it. That we have a pre-punch list, which we believe is between 50 to 75% complete. A contractor is coming in to work on the floors. We had talked about the damage to the concrete floors on that station, and that's going to be completed hopefully by the end of this month as well. We're also having a new contractor for landscaping, and that's sort of an outside issue, but it's an important issue to make sure that we are having that issue addressed. That impacts the ingress and egress of our apparatus into that station. We've asked for, and we hopefully will receive monthly reports on the progress. It is at a snail's pace, unfortunately, but we are making progress on the completion of that project. And a lot of thanks to the folks who have been doggedly watching this and working on this project. Thank you all for city staff for helping us get through this part where we are right now. There's nothing to vote on, Mr. Mayor. That's just an update on those 2 issues.
Thank you for that information. Any questions of Councilmember Shade? All right, next up is our Committee on Public Works. Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Committee on Public Works met, as you know, on yesterday. And on item A, public service update, that discussion was, we had a hearty discussion on it, but it was deferred. So there was no action taken on item 2A.
Actually, council member, that matter was withdrawn.
Well, that's even better. It was withdrawn. So I'm sure it'll be coming back. Item B was project updates. Mr. Fountain, do you have some input on that today?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I can run through the updates briefly if you'd like.
That would be great.
All right, try to do this very briefly. We did discuss started off with a few of the projects we don't talk about as traditionally because they're not the standard capital projects. They're more our maintenance rehabilitation projects. We started discussing the open ditch maintenance program. That's basically the rehabilitation of roadside open ditches and driveway culverts. We maintain about 114 road miles of that type of system in the city.
Between 2019 and 2020, we completed about 40 road miles of maintenance, the rate obviously of about 20 miles per year. We're continuing under that rate, barring major hurricane or other disruption, and have a projected completion date at the end of 2025 for that work. That brought us to the closed pipe maintenance. That's the style of roadside drainage you would see more in the peninsula or in newer subdivisions, where you have basically curb inlets and pipes under the sides of the road. We maintain about 312 road miles of this type of system. We've estimated from some initial work about 100 miles of pipe that needs inspection and cleaning. We've started an asset manager position that actually started yesterday, that will be coordinating the inspection work on those pipes to try to narrow that down further, because this is relatively expensive contractor style cleaning, but it does have very large impacts on drainage improvements. As an open ditch work, basically if you have a plug or a backup, the water can generally go around the problem through the ditches, and it just causes increased levels of flooding in a pipe system. If you get a blockage, it's basically a complete blockage and the water ends up in the streets. And I think we've all seen that many areas of the peninsula and inner West Ashley, inner James Island. So that work, we basically started again this year. We'll have a better idea of cost and target dates for completion by the end of this year. But right now we're looking very tentatively from some data we've done in the DuPont-Wapu area with this type of cleaning and maintenance inspection of completion basically by the end of 2028 at the rate we're going. Rear side yard drainage maintenance. This is sort of what we typically think of as like hand clean ditches that run next to people's houses or behind people's houses. Again, we maintain a significant number of these types of ditches. A little harder for exact linear distance, but on the order of 100 miles of these types of ditches. Some of them are larger ditches that we maintain with heavy equipment, but the majority are small hand clean ditches with weed eaters, chainsaws, pitchforks. We have, over the last 2 years, rehabilitated all of those ditches within the city of Charleston. We're now on a once a year vegetative cleaning cycle for those ditches, and we're working to get to a twice a year cleaning cycle, which we hope to do by next year. As we kind of continue our work through these, we have allocated through the budget process this year what's called a walking excavator, which basically has like 4 articulated wheels that can drive through the ditch system, and that will help us with some of the ditches we have more challenge hand cleaning to the level that really need to be hand cleaned to relieve some of the draining issues. So again, these are ones we don't touch on very often, but they're significant impacts for day-to-day drainage and frequency of flooding throughout the community. So I think they were worth highlighting. We are, as part of our kind of ongoing work on the city website to try to do a better citizen outreach portal, putting together maps and information on what the progress is through neighborhoods and pipe cleaning and open ditch cleaning to try to get that message out there by the end of the first quarter as well. For the more traditional projects, I'll try to go through these quickly. Spring Fishburne phase 4, we've completed excavation work in the outfall and have started installing the foundation stone. We're also installing the H piles, which look like giant I-beams. Basically, they're driven in to hold the box culverts. We're about 35 H piles installed out of about 380 that need to go in for that project work. And we're continuing excavation in the wet well, which is nearly complete. We'll be moving over to a stone foundation install shortly on that as well. Low battery phase 1, sidewalk and curbing should be generally complete today. We're progressing with the decorative work, lighting, surface installations, railings, and then we'll be completing street paving by the end of the month, which should be basically the substantial completion for the project at the end of January. Low battery phase 2, we're doing our final review of the construction contract at this point from the competitive bid process. That should be coming to council at the next Public Works Utilities and Council at the next council meeting for a construction start in February, basically immediately at the end of the phase 1 portion of the project. King UG phase 1, the construction bids are currently in evaluation on that project. Phase 2, we're continuing with design and permitting work. We have some kind of initial site layout ideas we've been working through with landscape architects for the BAR process, and also working on environmental permitting. The Forest Acres project, as we mentioned, the AT&T utility relocation is in progress. We're finalizing our easement acquisition as a result on the west side of Playground Road, and so be coming through council again also over the next month or two. And we're currently projecting construction start end of 2021, basically as soon as AT&T completes their relocation work on that project work. Market Street, we're working with Dominion over the next probably a few quarters to develop an undergrounding plan for the power on that project. Cooper Jackson, the pipe cleaning work is generally complete. That we again, we went through about 10,000 feet of pipe cleaning, and we should this week have completed the majority of the detailed field survey. We'll be starting to build the stormwater models to evaluate improvement options throughout the basin, which will get us to a point where we're at that point ready to start talking to the community and doing some prioritization outreach discussion. Barbary Woods Drainage Diversion Project, preliminary design works in progress. We've completed our field survey, most of our environmental survey work, and our laying out property acquisition needs, as well as our design approach. The Johns Island Drainage System Evaluation, this is looking at the easement needs and environmental restoration options throughout the island, has now gotten into preliminary design work. The Windermere Drainage Improvement Evaluation, the initial field survey is underway and nearly complete, which again will let us start our construction survey. We did also build out our story map for that project. It's in draft form now and should also be up on the website within the next week or so. The DuPont Wapu improvement projects, that also has detailed field survey work in progress. They're primarily in the southern portion of the basin at the moment. They'll be shifting north as they continue through projects 1 through 4, actually kind of in reverse for the field survey. Concord Street Pump Station, that design evaluation for the pump station outfit is continuing, and that's just going to continue for the next few months. The Church Creek flood storage projects, again, that contract was signed. We now have had our kickoff meeting and are starting our field visits and preliminary engineering work. We also have a meeting of the Church Creek Basin Stormwater Authority on Thursday, so that will help with coordination work as we proceed through those projects. The Limehouse Brick Arch Rehabilitation Pellet Project, we're putting together our 2021 work schedule now with our contractors. The Medical District Tunnel Extension, Earhart Shaft, that grant application was submitted to HUD. We have our design and permits all complete, and we're scheduled for a February board meeting with MUSC to consider the granting of those easements, which so far MUSC has been supportive of. Central Park, as we mentioned earlier, we're putting together a package with the Parks Department for the Greenbelt application in collaboration with the county to basically acquire a parcel at the end of Howell Avenue to convert piece of highland into a wetland system to help mitigate flooding in the area. That would be primarily the Howell, Stephen areas for that would be benefited by that portion of the project work. The Mueller Drive drainage easement, we mentioned this is a field modifications of ditch work that's scheduled. We're trying to basically move the water to the north and the west on that project, as well as what was originally considered, which is more of an eastern approach that would have required some significant movement for existing properties and encroachments. The Culpeper Southgate drainage easement, we have maps drafted, provided to surveys, and we actually started receiving we got our first cost proposal back today, and we'll be looking to get a couple more cost proposals so we can start that survey work. And then the Dowden Street, Dowden Court drainage evaluation, that field survey work is in progress, and we've been handing out flyers, and surveyors been kind of working through the area to look for evaluation improvement options. And then the West Pawnee Place bamboo drainage evaluation, that field survey work is also in progress with flyers going out and survey crews on the ground. That's what I had for you today, Mr. Chairman.
So is that all?
That's just before we start the next $1 million of 2021 allocation work, which will be coming up in the next couple of public works utility meetings.
People think that's too long. Let me tell you, that's how many projects we have going on in the city of Charleston to help alleviate and fix drainage problems that we have. So it's comprehensive. Yes, it is. And I appreciate your indulgence in listening to it. Does any council member have any questions of Mr. Fountain?
Yeah, where are we with the Wamba?
Fountain?
Yes, that's a good question, Councilman Gregory. So we do have a series of different project scope options and budget options that we've worked through with AECOM, who's our design consultant for the area. So what we've been doing now with BFRC is going through the revised cash flow based upon the final drainage fund revenue allocations that were provided by council at the end of December. And again, the construction and design tasks that are already in progress. We expect to have those cash flow, and I certainly don't want to speak for Ms. Wharton, but I think we expect to have those cash flow projections in the next week or two, which will then let us see what we have funding wise to advance Central Park versus, again, options within the small project allocation, which would be the other approach that we could consider.
And so we're really talking phase one, right?
We're looking primarily at project area 1 and 2. There's a couple of different options we looked at with AECOM of what the potential cost savings would be if we started with 1, which has a longer lead time than 2. And I can certainly talk about that in more detail, but there's not a massive cost difference between the two. So I'd really like to get those financial projections in. At this point, we have options. We're just trying to figure out the cash flow approach.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I saw Councilman Shee.
Yes, Matt, thank you for that very exhaustive update. And I think that we've talked about this before, and Councilmember Waring, our chairman, has brought this up. But we do need to pat ourselves on the back some with all these projects that we're doing and the cost of these things and with what we're doing for our community and our citizens. So if we can list these out someplace on our website, I don't know if we have it there or not, but just to show to the community what we're doing and the progress that these things are in, the stages that these projects are in, would be a big help so people can track this without having to contact you or contact us on a regular basis. But just let them know where we stand with some of these projects would be a big help.
Yeah, absolutely. We hope to have that complete by the end of the first quarter this year for kind of a better approach on the website. Much of it is there, but it's not easy to find and not kind of easy to dig through. But you're right, we are spending about $60 million this year on different construction projects. Much of that is grant funded and is supported in different partnerships and ongoing projects we have. But it is a significant amount of work for a city our size.
Thank you so much.
Good. Councilwoman Jackson.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Matt. And I totally agree with Councilmember Waring. We should be proud that it takes you so long and in such illustrative detail to talk about everything that's going on in your shop. I think it's amazing knowing the staffing that you have and the multitasking that goes on any one day. So I really appreciate that. And I don't know if you like champagne or you like beer, but I want to send something to celebrate the fact that all the ditches have been completed in the city of Charleston. I mean, that is an amazing accomplishment all to itself. So thank you very much. Tell me when somebody's going to come. And actually, I want a picture of the 4-legged excavator so I can show my grandson who's got every excavator there is in the world. I bet he doesn't have one of those. So send him one of those. I did want to mention, because Councilmember Waring made me think of this at Ways and Means, that we are also celebrating the collaborative efforts, because the ditches on James Island and West Ashley and a lot of other places, are beholden to the cooperative efforts of our jurisdictional partners, and we haven't had partners in other years. So in the last 3 or 4 years since I've been an active resident and proud to serve on James Island, that whole paradigm has shifted pretty dramatically. And so Thursday afternoon at 3:30, it's not a public meeting. We don't allow a lot of any comments from the public, but it's on Zoom, and we have what we call the James Island Drainage Committee meeting. It's of people who are serving, elected officials, to meet with our stormwater managers who are following all of these things for James Island. And that meeting would not have happened a couple of years ago. So I salute Mayor Woolsey, our staff colleagues at the town of James Island, and obviously our city and our own mayor and my colleagues who are serving the citizens of James Island. It's 3:30, it's on Zoom. The town of James Island hosts it. So if you're curious to hear us talk about things in more detail, feel free to come along. Thanks.
Councilman Mitchell? You muted.
Thank you. I heard you talked about with the plans going on with Hughie and King, but we don't have any, first question, we don't have any idea when they're going to start some work on Hughie and King. And secondly, if we have any idea what we might be doing on the east side of town, like America Street, where it's flooding, and Aiken Street and 9th Street and those areas.
Yeah, so the King Hughie project, the phase 1, the streetscaping, that construction bid is in evaluation right now. So assuming the bid is acceptable and we complete our evaluation and council approves an award, we would expect to start construction in February. CWS would also have to sign off on their portion of the bid, but that would be probably a February start for construction. The east side is the kind of, we refer to it from a stormwater perspective, probably more confusingly than anything, is the Cooper Jackson project, because of it's the historic name of those two basins. So we have completed 10,000 feet of pipe cleaning, almost $100,000 of pipe cleaning within the area to try to restore flow in the very short term. That's also allowed our surveyors to be able to go in and complete the survey work, which they should have that finished up this week. They've been working on it for the last 4 weeks or so, with not counting a couple week break over the holidays. So that will then lead to AECOM basically building the stormwater computer model with that survey work to start laying out improvement projects. So short term, $100,000 of pipe cleaning, which should show some short-term improvements. Midterm has been the survey work going on and this computer evaluations, and then moving out a year or two, we'll be looking at design work for hopefully some excellent improvement projects in the area.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Gregory?
Yes, Matt, could you, at our next council meeting, sort of give us an update on peninsula projects, and in general, I mean, such as Gordon Street, Moultrie Street, South Street, I mean, Haggard, Lockwood, I mean, I can go on and on, but can you give us sort of an update on where we are with regard to addressing some of those issues at our next meeting?
Yes, yeah, I can. Those are generally outside of sort of the large scale capital projects, barring Lockwood, which is an interesting combination of all of those. But I can certainly focus in on some of the sort of heavy maintenance work and rehab work we've been doing in those areas.
Okay, and if you can, could you also share with fellow council members the partnership that we may have with the West Edge Foundation to try to address some of the issues at Haggard, in particular Haggard and Fishburne?
Yes, yeah, we can go over how the kind of the West Edge work interacts with the Spring Fishburne project work, and between the two, kind of what's addressed from both tidal flooding and from rainfall flooding.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Mr. Felton. The last thing on that I asked approval on was an ordinance amending Chapter 27 of the Code of the City of Charleston by amending flood hazard prevention and control requirements. I think it was really wordsmithing, making it a little bit more simpler, but is it Ms. Haversham that is going to explain that? She explained it to our committee. So
yes, sir, I'll be happy to.
Thank you so much.
You all will recall that we adopted a change to the freeboard ordinance back in March, which increased the freeboard requirement from 1 foot to 2 feet for new construction of residential structures and new construction and substantial improvements of non-residential structures. The intent at the time was to maintain the existing 1 foot freeboard requirement for substantial improvements of residential structures. But that provision was inadvertently omitted from the final version that was passed. So we are asking council to approve this amendment, which does not change anything about the way the ordinance is currently being interpreted and enforced. It simply puts the omitted language back in to clarify that the 1 foot freeboard requirement still applies to the substantial improvements for residential structures.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. That passed unanimous, and I so move its adoption by council today.
Second. All right, now I'm up.
Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Mayor, that's the extent of my report.
Well, thank you. So I will just add a quick little update. I found out this afternoon that the DOT did give approval, Councilmember Seekings, to an application that the beach company is performing to regrade, elevate a portion of Broad and Lockwood, including the redesign included a new pipe that will run under Broad Street and will drain that big puddle down there at the corner of Broad and Lockwood. So that work should begin probably in the next few weeks. All right. So next up is our Committee on Traffic and Transportation, Councilmember Seekings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members. The Committee on Traffic and Transportation met today at 2 o'clock. We had no business that's going to require a vote of this council, but just for information quickly, we had a discussion about golf carts. It's been an ongoing issue in the committee for about the last 10 years. The focus today is on unregistered golf carts around the city and what to do about them. Mr. Benjamin and his staff are very ably putting together a strategy that'll allow us to monitor and ultimately deal with people who do not register their golf carts in accordance with state law, so that we can do things like move them out of illegal parking spaces and the like. That should get back to us pretty quickly, and we'll bring it to council. We also had a presentation about the Morrison Drive sidewalk project, which is along Morrison Drive near the new Morrison Yards development. If you've been up in that area, it's pretty rough. It floods. There is no way to passage other than by a car. The sidewalk project, which is funded, will really allow some movement through that corridor and make the quality of life for those in and around there and going through there much better. That project will come via an MOA with the developer of Morrison Yards. Ultimately will be paid for through that development process. There is some room for some improvements on it. So that will come to Ways and Means, Councilmember Gregory, next meeting. So keep an eye out for that. So nothing that requires approval by this council, just updates and some more to come as we go through 2021. And if Mr. Benjamin is out there and has anything to add, I certainly welcome his comments. If not, that's my report.
The only comment that I'll make is council members just be mindful that we have our transportation sales tax projects to the county applications that are due on February 1st. One of the stipulations of the many stipulations that they put on this new application process is that there has to be letters of support. And so you'll be hearing either from myself or Michael Mathis regarding projects that may be in your district, either that have gone unfunded or have come up in conversations with city staff to get your letter to go with the application.
All right. I don't think any action is required. That was just for update purposes. Any further questions or comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, and this is probably a Matt and a Keith question. It's regarding Fleming Road on James Island. And we've been having some discussions over the years with regard to putting sidewalks on Fleming. Part of the issue had to do with you can't do the sidewalks before you do the drainage. We probably don't have to go into it at depth tonight, but I'd also like to get an update on Fleming Road with regard to sidewalks and drainage, because we have been discussing it for some time.
I can go ahead and address that, Mayor or Chair, if you don't
Sure.
mind.
Thank you.
So we got to keep in mind the Fleming Road sidewalk request would amount from the county's estimate, I believe about $1.2 million.
Correct.
That would be the totality of the pot of bike ped fund, almost half the money for bike ped funds that are allocated for the entire county for the solicitation of transportation sales tax money. Just from a funding standpoint, it doesn't raise high on their priority list in their evaluation criteria, as well as one of the stipulations that was added into sales tax last year was that any project that a municipality submits if there's right-of-way issues that have to be handled, whether by cost or conversation, that requesting entity will have to handle that would not be paid for due to sales tax process. And as you know, on Fleming Road, there are some right-of-way concerns for it. We did and still include Fleming Road on our request list because we do feel that it is important. What we talked about with the planning department was whether or not there's a portion of the sidewalk that we could submit specifically from the intersection of Fleming and Maybank to at least the back end of the church. That still has some right-of-way issues and otherwise, but to at least pitch, can we move forward with a phased portion of it? I have no idea how that'll be evaluated through the county's process, but we still do have it on the list and still do want to push that forward. The other thing that we're hoping for once those developments have all their occupancy levels is their responsibility that's attached to the PUD to do both the study and the cost estimation and payment for signalization at Fleming and Maybank, which we think also will play a significant role in pushing what needs to happen there as well. So we do still have it on the TST request list. The way that we talked about it internally as staff and pitched to the mayor was to still have it on the list, but talk about it from a phasing standpoint, again, from Fleming and Maybank, at least to the back end of the church, and see how that then scores with the county.
Fleming and Maybank, didn't we have some type of agreement with the developer that they would put some of those sidewalks in at that area?
I don't think that's specifically outlined in there. The bus stop was outlined and the payment for signalization at Fleming and Maybank was discussed in the PUD.
Okay, but we may want to check because if I recall, that was a part of I thought it was a part of the deal with that development, that latest development along Fleming. And I think
Councilmember, we looked back at that not too long ago, and I'm pretty sure it just included the signalization cost.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to bring up, this is new, Tripe Street over in Ashleyville. I'm sure Councilmember Sacman will appreciate help on this one. That street needed paving for a number of years now. I know Councilman Gregory, when he represented it, had a drainage put in there because it was poorly drained. That drain was put in, but the resurfacing was never done. And I mean, I'm serious. You go on that street, number one, your car's gonna get out of alignment. We actually have ponding in the street after rains because you have that many sunken areas in the street. So this isn't anything that Councilman, but Benjamin knew of, but this is new. But if we can get that one in line somehow with some of the CHATS money, I'm sure the people over there, Councilman Saccharin, Councilman Gregory, the mayor, a lot of us would be happy if we can get that done.
What street was that, Councilmember?
Tripe Street, T as in Tom, R as in Robert, I, P as in Paul, E as in Edward. Tripe Street. It's the first street when you turn in Ashleyville by the gas station on Sycamore, and the first street on the right. Right. Not a long street, but that's where it is.
It's right behind where Cross Seeds used to be, isn't it?
I know exactly where it is. I just didn't hear him well when he first mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just jump in, and fellow council members, to the extent there's issues that need to come before the T&T committee on individual streets, just let Mr. Benjamin and us know, particularly like with paving and things like that, and we can accelerate things. That'd be great. So just communicate with him, and we'll try to do whatever we can to move things forward.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Shealy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I know, Mr. Benjamin, we've talked about the intersection of, Ashley Crossing and Magwood, and that whole area probably being the most dangerous intersection we probably have in the city of Charleston. And, I certainly don't want to have that left out when these talks come up, because there's probably, I don't think there's probably an intersection in the city of Charleston that has more accidents than that one, and maybe Charlie Hall Boulevard right there at Magwood as well. So I hope we'll consider those.
That intersection is on there, so you will be getting a letter from us to make sure we have your support letter. With Tripe Street, the way that we've handled it, Councilman Waring, we can't make a predetermination on where resurfacing occurs. The county does it through a grading system. However, we do elevate, let them know, hey, where does this street fall within your process? Councilmember Jackson knows this because we've done it for a number of streets in her district. And if something can be moved up, I got to give a shout out to Mackenzie at the county. She's been amazing. In fact, that's the reason why resurfacing is occurring in Rosemont this year. We saw that as an issue in that area, brought that up, and they were able to make some adjustments on our behalf. So definitely I'll send some correspondence to Mackenzie at the county, and she'll be able to give us a sense of where that street falls in line with their resurfacing schedule.
Thank you. Thank you again.
So if I may add just one more thing, Councilmember Shealy, you reminded me of it. At the Chats meeting the other day, they did a presentation about 526 West improvements that SCDOT is planning. Their public comment period ends this coming Friday. So we have 3 more days to enter public comments. I think I've shared with a few of you council members that their proposal only addresses traffic flowing away from 526 onto Glen McConnell by having an overpass at Magwood, but it does not provide an overpass coming into town, towards town, off of Glen McConnell towards 526. So in my view, it's an incomplete solution. They say it's a scope of work, doesn't provide for coming in that direction. But while you're there and you're building the bridge, build it in both directions. And the other thing is, if you widen Glen McConnell, which is getting ready to proceed, you're going to bring more traffic faster to a place, an intersection that isn't going to work long-term without that overpass there. So I would respectfully ask all my council members to take a look at that in the next couple of days, and please let your constituents know so that folks can make comments to SCDOT by Friday. Thank you. All right, so next we got our Committee on Ways and Means. Councilmember Gregory.
Move for approval as amended, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
Second.
Any discussion, comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, we have just 3 bills up for reading. We're going to defer number 4. So can I hear a motion for those 3?
Move for approval 1, 2, and 3.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for 3rd reading and
So
ratification.
move.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, under bills for first reading, I'd actually like to call on our new official clerk of council, Jennifer, to share with us her vision for helping take care of all the demands of taking minutes for our city functions. I think, as you know, we're using more technology than we used in the past. Jennifer is looking very closely at even initiating more technology, and the demands on her office and staff have markedly increased over the last few years with all the committees, commissions, FOIA requirements that have come along. So that led us to this recommendation to you this evening. Jennifer, would you mind expanding on that?
Sure. Yes, sir. So I know this probably is not going to be popular with some of our council members because I know how much everyone loves the verbatim council minutes. It is nice having that transcript of everything that someone said at a meeting. However, it does take a significant amount of staff time to produce those. And as you know, sometimes we can't always have those ready for council by the following meeting, just depending on the length of the meeting and our other staff needs during that time, our office needs during that time. And so part of how this conversation came about, NOVAC, actually, we were one of the departments that they looked at, and they did a study of minutes taking, and they looked at other benchmark cities. And they looked at 10 benchmark communities that were similar to Charleston. And one of the findings basically is that 9 of those cities, basically their minutes were either summary or detailed. Only one other city had verbatim minutes. And so we wanted to sort of bring this to you. And I know this, will probably take some thinking and discussing by council to see how they want to move forward with this. But we wanted to propose this idea just in looking forward at 2021 with the impacts of COVID and staffing on our department, and also the increase in some of the meetings that we are having to cover. If council would consider going to summary minutes for council, given that we do have a video of all of our council meetings. And so that's basically the gist of it. If I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Gregory.
Yeah, Jennifer. I mean, I know you know as well as I know this is historical. But my question is, don't we have technology now that you can actually do with the dictaphone and it actually converts it into writing?
No, I mean, not that I'm aware of. I know that we have court reporters. I think there are court reporters, and I can check with them to see what technology that they use, but I'm not aware of any technology that will transcribe exactly what someone says. There's some technology out there that some companies have offered, and unfortunately, it's not 100% accurate. If there were technology out there that was 100% accurate, court reporters would probably be out of a job. And so what we've looked at are some companies that they have technology that can do that, but it still requires a lot of editing on our end, and it sort of defeats the point. We also looked at another company that sort of does a hybrid, and we actually tried that for one of our meetings, where they have their own technology that will transcribe the meeting, and then they actually have human editors that will go back and edit it. And it's pretty expensive to do that. So we did try them out one time just to see how it would work. And basically, even in doing that, we still had to spend time editing it and formatting it. So we're definitely looking at other technology to see if there's anything out there, and we're happy to look at additional technology, or if anyone knows of any out there that maybe I haven't thought of, we'll be happy to check that out. But just in looking at what's out there, it's difficult to find something that will transcribe everything verbatim.
As a follow-up, I agree with you. I've used the dictaphone app on my phone, and it doesn't really capture it. And you would have to go in and you would have to try to do what you just articulated. But doesn't Zoom have transcription?
So I don't know about Zoom. I know YouTube has closed captioning, but I don't think that's something that we can actually extract and use from YouTube.
Okay. Could we look though and see whether or not? I'm going to support it. I'm just trying to think it through because I think Zoom might have some kind of transcription capacity. Could we just look into that?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And I see Tracy popped up too, so I don't know if Tracy, you wanted to add.
Yeah, Zoom does have some third-party applications, and we tested those before with Jennifer, and they did not do what she was looking for. It doesn't do the verbatim. It still required a good bit of editing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. I really, appreciate your initiative, Jennifer, because it's so labor intensive, and I've been in my career of needing to manage stuff and people and administrative functions. I really feel your pain about knowing that, you know, you're asking people to make a huge change, honestly, and being able to just comfortably download a transcript and, you know, find the section that we're looking for, and as a matter of archival history and all of that. So I admire your initiative. I think we can all get comfortable with this. I was thinking as you were talking that, are we talking about only, we're talking about all committees, right? So all committees would be summary and video. Would there be any compromise in just doing the council just to get started, like phase in our, you know, getting used to the change? So take all the rest of the committees to the summary and recording of, you know, changes, and then continue the council maybe for the rest of the year or 6 months to see how, you know, that impacts your overall staff workload. And the other suggestion that I had would be, can you give us some samples of what other summaries, you know, so assume we agreed to the summary minutes, what that would look like, so that we can evaluate if that's at all, you know, comforting or helpful. I'm assuming that it's YouTube that would be the video recordings, right? So is that, archival, and if we're being FOIA'd, does that meet all of the requirements for a FOIA delivery to our public? So those are my, off the top of my head.
I'll let, I see Susan just came unmuted. Susan, did you want to jump in as well?
Yes, just to add that summary minutes are not required under South Carolina law. I'm sorry, verbatim minutes are not required under South Carolina law. So if we did summary minutes, that would be fine. However, state law does set forth what has to be included in those minutes. So you need to comply with the state law requirements, but they do not need to be verbatim.
There is guidance. Okay.
So Jennifer, can I ask a question? Like we'd have our YouTube recordings available to where anyone could go back and listen in real time to the whole meeting. Could you, in your summary minutes, mark on there like for the discussion of the Committee on Public Works, it was from minute, hour and 15 to an hour and 25. And so you'd kind of know with the basic format of the summary minutes where you would go on the recording if you wanted to hear the whole thing.
We can, yes.
Mr. Mayor, can we even go further though? I mean, if we're talking about technology, why can't the link be there? Why can't, I mean, would that be too cumbersome, Jennifer? In other words, when you do your summary, okay, if someone wants to look deeper, just press the link, okay, to that particular section. It makes it much easier to even do a comparison as opposed to doing all the research to go through sometimes 8-9 hours of council meeting.
We can definitely, I can reach out to IT to see if that's something that we can do. I mean, we can definitely put the link for the whole meeting recording on there, but as far as linking to a certain portion of the recording, that's something I might have to ask IT about that, because I think probably what's going to happen is it's probably just going to take you to the site where the recording is. I don't know if there's a way to link it to a specific portion in the meeting. That's the only catch, but I'll follow up with IT. They might have some tricks up their sleeves that might be able to help us. And then Councilwoman Jackson, I think you had a question from earlier, and right now for our other committees, we pretty much do summary minutes for those anyway, and they're pretty detailed for the most part. I'd say they're more than summary. And I know for Ways and Means, like our budget discussion that we had, those have to be verbatim. That's actually in the code, that those minutes, just the Ways and Means meeting that covers the budget, those have to be verbatim, but all of the others are already summary. It's just the council minutes that have been verbatim.
Okay, but please look to see whether or not we can do links, because as we read documents now, you'll see certain words or verbiage that might be highlighted. And if you hit that particular word, you go to a link that further explains that section. So it's obvious that this technology is there.
Yes.
I mean, and if we are going to really be 21st century, let's go all the way. Okay, if we can.
Yes, sir. We'll definitely look into that.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, so I know Jennifer will follow up on those comments. They were all good suggestions for purposes of moving forward. I asked for approval of this item for first reading. Did we have a motion on the floor?
So move.
I move for approval.
Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Our next regular meeting will be in 2 weeks on January 26th. Any further business to come before us this evening? Hearing none, y'all have a great evening. Thank you. Happy New Year again, and we'll talk
Thank
to
you all.
Be safe.
Be safe.
Everybody.